Hello and welcome to Soundcheck. My name's JH, and this is the first time we've just gone straight into an interview without playing a song first, because today we're interviewing someone who doesn't actually make music. So please welcome to the show, Maroon 5, everyone.
Is that like a running joke that you've got on the show?
Yeah. It's going to be.
Yeah, just nice. I think it should be.
We're coming for them.
Correction, I have made, I think, 2 songs, maybe
have
3.
You?
Well, with the Jack and Dean thing.
Oh yeah.
Because people who might not know, I'm part of a comedy duo called Jack and Dean, and we made a song a few years ago called Consent, which accidentally was in response to some horrendous things that were happening on the internet. It was just coincidental, but really we made that in response to Robin Thicke's Blurred Lines. And then also in our show Jack and Dean of All Trades, we have a couple of musical numbers. So I think you'll find I'm also a musician as well. You can add that to the list of things.
Were you involved in the making of those songs then?
Not really, no. I was involved in the lyrics a bit, but I think I would put my name last in who's involved in those songs. That we worked in collaboration with my partner Dean, his brother Daniel Dobbs, who's an incredible musician, and one of my best friends, Benjamin Squires, who's an incredible composer. Like they're the ones who, and John T. Picking is the one who produced Consent as well. They're the talented ones when it comes to music. I just wanted to just add another thing to the list of things that I do. Yeah,
I should introduce who you are. I just realised I haven't. We've got Jack Howard on the show. He's a director, he's a writer, he's an actor, a podcast host. He does a lot of stuff, and it's kind of difficult to list it all. I mean, going back to that Consent song quickly, yeah. I watched that again for the first time in years last night.
Is it a bit cringe now?
No, but what... I think it genuinely holds up, but I think what I never realised at the time, Catherine Ryan's in that video.
She is, yeah. Catherine Ryan's in that.
I've never realised that. I still only realised from like a comment. I didn't recognise her.
Yeah, right. Oh, it was great. Yeah, Catherine and I don't know if she's still managed by the same people, but I was a fan of her. Like, this is before, because now she's like, especially in the UK, she's completely like smashed it. She's one of the most famous comedians that we have. And back then, she was still, I think, sort of in 2014. Bloody hell, when did we make that? Was it 2014?
I think so, yeah.
Holy shit. She was still building her career, and we were managed by the same person at the time, and I literally just reached out to her because I was a big fan, and we had a meeting, and I told her what the song was about and what we wanted to do, and I'd love her to be part of it, and she was just like, yeah. There was barely a conversation about it. She just came and did it, and she was fantastic, and she added loads of jokes as well, and she performs so brilliantly. She's such a physical comedian as well, and I don't think she gets to do that very often.
Yeah, it was really weird to see her, and that was awesome. I think we've skipped a step. We need let's
go back. Let's go back.
We mentioned Jack and Dean. It's the comedy duo you're part of on YouTube. It's where I think most people will know you from. You've done sketches on there, kind of it's 2 series, isn't it? That you did?
Series of a show called Jack and Dean of All Trades. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you say a lot that you're a reluctant writer. And that you write things just as an excuse to direct them. Correct. And I think that's a really good example of that, YouTube in general, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely feel that way. I've got a poster behind me. If anyone's listening to this if anyone's listening to this just on the audio, there is a poster behind me for Steven Soderbergh's first film, which is called Sex, Lies and Videotape. And that's something that Steven Soderbergh has said many times. He goes, I'm not a writer, I can write, but I will write something just to be able to get myself to the position to direct something. I think I've come from the school of, and the generation of people who just make stuff just to make stuff, because we have the access to do it now, and it's just easier more than ever to be able to put that on on a platform, to be able to find an audience and people who will like it. And when Steven Soderbergh made that, it was because he didn't have any other option. Like, he wasn't going to walk in and be like, can I direct that? Who are you? Like, we're not going to give it to you. So like, that's kind of the same thing now, is that I'm going to keep writing scripts to be able to sort of go, well, if you want to make this, I get to make it. Or lately I've gone, how about I go to people who have not just a finished script, but like a finished like a soundscape, and I get to just interpret that visually. Like, so that's how I sort of see music videos, is me adapting somebody else's material. It is exactly that, but I'm treating it like a screenplay in a way, like how would I bring this to life in any other way?
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because the foundations are already there, you know?
Exactly.
Do you ever feel like you're kind of stepping on, is there a difficult balance to get where you're like worried you're stepping on someone's toes because it's ultimately...
With the artist?
Yeah.
It's an interesting question. I've never felt like I've had that conflict so far, and I'm sure that it could and possibly will happen. I think it's a really important part of the process, and I'd do the same thing if I was working with a script, with somebody else's writing. I think it's really important to talk to the artist and really get a sense of what it is they want to get out of the video. But for me as well, like to be able to interpret the song and create something that I think is meaningful, to discover what it is about, to have really, really in-depth conversations about where they were at when they wrote it, what it's about for them, like, you know, not specifically talking about like visuals, what are you seeing, like, but literally just talking about what is this, what are you talking about, what are we exploring in this song. And I find that really, really helpful in adapting from one medium to the other. And I think my head just works more visually, and I don't understand music on a technical level really at all. So it's nice to be able to work with somebody like that and be given the reins to just visually be able to bring it to life and feel trusted to do that, as long as I've had those conversations, really. Like, I really want to make sure that they feel comfortable with me running with it.
Yeah, I wanted to ask how many people for a music video and for any shoot really, like how many people do you have on set? Because we spoke to an Australian musician called Dean Lewis a few weeks ago.
I love him.
Yeah, he's kind of, for people who don't know, he's kind of like the Lewis Capaldi of Australia in a lot of ways. And he shot, I don't know, you may have seen it, but he shot this incredible music video in a empty hotel / casino in Las Vegas.
Oh, very cool.
And he said there were 50 people on site to do that.
Yeah.
And he was the only person in it. And I was like, because I'm not a film guy, I don't know.
Gotcha.
And I was like, how? How do you get...
You're just wondering what everyone's doing.
Yeah, what are you doing?
What are all your jobs? Yeah, I think there's almost like a bit of a joke about that in the film industry. You got a lot of people standing around. For us... you know, when we're making stuff, it's always pretty low budget, and so we are working with whoever is absolutely necessary. And if you're not necessary, you're not on the shoot. And that's been for everything that I've made, and I like that. And I'd like to, you know, as things grow, and hopefully as I get to make bigger stuff, I would like to keep that rule as much as possible. That if you're not doing something, if you're not absolutely essential on set, I don't really want you there. But when we've made stuff, they can be as like the videos I've made for Dodie. There's 12 videos, one for every song on the album, except for the bonus tracks, and low budget, really low budget, but didn't restrict our like creativity, because Dodie had a very clear idea of what she wanted to do, and it was already a small production thing anyway. She almost was like, should you just do it, like you just film it, and it would just be me and you, and we'll just drive around. But I was like, nah, let's do something a bit different. Let's do something, and let's make it feel like it isn't just a small production thing. Let's fool people. But it was just me, my producer Sophie Newton, my director of photography Kieran O'Brien, and Dodie, and that was it. That's who made those videos, and I loved that. There was 4 days of making 12 videos, which is intense.
Yeah.
But that was really, really fun, and it felt like just mates pulling together and making a thing. But then the video we made after that, which has already come out, for I Kissed Someone It Wasn't You, that was a much larger. It was 2 days to film one video, which is obviously a different ratio to what we did, which is 12 videos in 4 days. But one video over 2 days, we had a bigger camera crew. We had somebody location managing. You know, there was a much bigger. It was a much bigger operation. We had like 4 actors in it as well, but it can vary depending on the budget that you're spending, how many people are around. Like when we make Jack and Dean sketches as well, like there can be 5 people on set, or there can be 15 to 20 people on set. And it just depends how much money is being spent. Ultimately, that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, how much the brand deal is worth.
Exactly. Yeah. Like if Domino's are paying for it, we'll have a bigger crew.
So you shot 12 videos all in the confines of like a car. Is it
Correct.
difficult to make those quite distinct from each other?
It was a really fun creative challenge.
Yeah.
It was an idea that Dodie had that she wanted to do, and I loved it immediately. Like I really am a fan of thinking of things, because I'm a very visual person. I'm a fan of thinking of things of like in a metaphorical sense, or like what is that representing? And immediately the idea of a car is like, well, you're on a literal journey, and also in terms of like where she's positioned in the car, it tells you where she's, like, if she's in the driver's seat or the passenger seat, or if she's in the back. Like it's visually telling you something, even if you're not like decoding that. It's coded and it's going to go in subconsciously, and I love that stuff. And that was already number one, and I was like, what does the car represent? And I had lots of different interpretations for that. There's no single answer for me, so immediately that just opened up the potential of these. Not seeing them as just, oh well, we're just in a car for 12 videos, but more like what are we doing with that? And so it was a challenge, but me and Dodie sat down basically for an afternoon and just went through every song on her album together and just talked about what it is we were feeling and seeing and what we could do. And because we were trying to do them in one take as well, that limited it, but in a creative way. It didn't feel stressful, or I didn't feel confined to it. It felt like a fun challenge. It felt like a rule to stick to. So yes and no. Like it was restricting, but I love working within a box like that. I think as soon as you open up creativity to do whatever you want, you get the Star Wars prequels. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
when I think about the first Jaws versus whatever Jaws they got to, the beauty of it is that the shark didn't work, and so they had to creatively figure out, how are we going to make this scary and make it feel like there is a shark without showing the shark? And that's a similar thing. So basically I'm comparing myself to Steven Spielberg.
Yeah, well, I mean, fair play to you, because I think 12 videos, I think I'd get to like 6 and go, I'm out.
Well, I think halfway is pretty good for someone who doesn't make videos. I think that
even
six,
that's quite ambitious, really. With the ones for Dodie, and it's quite an ignorant question, but like what? Because you produced one, right?
Correct,
and you directed the others.
You want to know the difference between producing and directing?
Yeah, like what are you responsible for as a producer that you aren't as a director, and vice versa?
So the easiest way of distinguishing them is that a director is in control of the creative vision of the piece, and the producer makes it happen. So
more logistical.
Well, yeah, like so if the director said, I want a car, the producer says, well, now I've got to get a car. Yeah. Okay, we're going to take this car through a car wash. Okay, well, I need to find out where that car wash is and which one we can use, and are we going to have to tell them that we're going to film there, or can we just get away with it? And all right, like we need to pay for cleaning the car, and we need to pay for, it's like figuring out all the steps to make that creative choice a possibility, which is probably the easiest way of discussing it. But I produce with Sophie Newton, who's incredible. She's such a brilliant creative partner to have, and our lines blur all the time. She also is responsible for art directing or production design, which is essentially like, if you were to if my room was production designed, someone would have decided these bed sheets, someone would have decided that poster, that's what production design is. So when you're talking about production and art directing in film, it's like sets and the type of lamp that's in shot or whatever, like it's everything like that. So Sophie does a lot of that stuff, and then I edit a lot of stuff as well.
Yeah.
So when we were making I Kissed Someone It Wasn't You, which was directed by Hazel Hayes, and I think she did a wonderful, like beautiful job. It was such a like a mature and really like grounded and yet dreamlike video that she wanted to make. But when I was producing that, because I was also editing it, the line was kind of blurred between the two, so I had a more creative involvement than a producer usually might have. But on this level specifically, that mean to answer your question, director, creative, producer, logistics.
Yeah, and I'm sure you've worked with quite varying budgets over the years, because obviously YouTube, the budget is whatever you can afford and are willing to put into it. The BBC is whatever you can find on the floor. But there's a lot of independent musicians that listen to this show, and they obviously want to make music videos to promote their music and everything, but a lot of the time they don't have the skill, or they have like a really minimal budget. Do you have any tips for making a budget really stretch, like as far as it will possibly go?
That's a really good question. I've worked with a lot of varying budgets. When I directed a music video for an artist called Ledley for her song Love Me Like That, I would say the best thing we did with that was limit the location. It was also at my house, and Sophie art directed my 30-year-old male housemate's room to make it look like a teenage girl's sleepover dream. And you can't tell that, she did such a fantastic job. We pulled resources from another friend of ours who just has lots and lots of basically props around her house. So we used our own resources, and I don't think anybody who wasn't us could have got this done in the same way, because but I think somebody else could have done something different using their resources. So I would say one location, pool your resources, make it a one-day thing, make it simple. The best thing I think we did for that video as well is that I creatively limited myself again. Something that really caught my attention with that song was how it purposefully used repetition in the song. And so I decided to make something repeat. I decided to go, okay, this song's about a toxic relationship for me in my head. And what happens in toxic relationships? Things go round in circles. There's a cycle that happens there. So I decided to make a Groundhog Day video where, for once, the main character doesn't know that they're in Groundhog Day, but everybody else does. And I think that was my way of representing that type of relationship, but also on a practical level was my way of going, this is producible in one day. I can do this over, because if I'm repeating the same camera movement over and over again, there's no new setups. I don't need to turn the camera around and turn all the lights around and break everybody for half an hour while we reset everything. I can just set it up once and go. So I would say just be really practical about your ideas and look at them as creative opportunities. And number 2, hire me.
Yeah, I think it's a mistake. A lot of music, not a mistake, but a wrong way of looking at it, because a lot of musicians go I don't have the budget to do this kind of rap style video and rent out a Lamborghini or whatever. But as you've been saying, creative limitations really they can make something really interesting. Yeah, I think lockdown as well, actually, completely out of the realm of budgets. Even massive musicians have been doing quite interesting videos in lockdown because they have to.
Yeah, I mean, even Billie Eilish, there's no point in really bringing her into this conversation because she can do whatever she wants. She's literally the biggest artist in the world right now, but she chooses to sometimes make things really lo-fi, and that works for her. So her video of her running around a mall in somewhere in America when it was empty is okay, so malls are closed. I'm Billie Eilish. I can absolutely afford to rent, if I'm going to give money to a location, I can absolutely afford to rent a mall. And it's just somebody following around with an iPhone. So it feels really lo-fi.
I think it's literally Phineas. I think it's right. Just her brother.
Yeah. But that's her using her resources.
Yeah.
We couldn't afford to rent out a shopping centre, but she can. But she's still going to do it in this way that feels like it's just her throwing up a video on the internet.
Yeah. I mean, how easy is it to go overboard with a budget and blow things out of proportion? Because I don't know if you know Emma Blackery. She's a YouTuber, musician type person. She a couple years ago put out a video telling about her experiences in the music industry and how she spent, it was something ridiculous, 15 grand on a music video which was essentially her and a few other musicians lip syncing with instruments in a studio. And I was I'm not a filmmaker, that might be but I don't think that's a justified price, right?
Well, it's interesting because I think that some of the stuff that we've made should have cost up to £10,000-15,000 if you had all the appropriate members of crew, because a lot of the time people that I'm working with are doubling up jobs and they're working harder than they would usually have to on a film set. I think it's quite easy to look at the end result of something and say, that looks really simple. Surely that shouldn't have cost the amount it did.
Yeah.
But I think what I'm good at, and the people that I work with are really good at, is tricking an audience into thinking that this looks really expensive when actually it was made for, pennies.
Yeah.
And that's something that I've always tried to do, and I've been very lucky to work with the people that because if I came to Kieran, if someone who wasn't Kieran with some of the ideas that I've had, and somebody else did it, or if we did have to shoot it on a DSLR or a phone, some of those ideas would just not work. And there's one on the Dodie videos that I directed. One of the 12 is black and white in reverse and really dramatic. And if we had to film that with somebody else, it just wouldn't have worked out. But when you watch it, you're not going to think that video was just us. It looks like a film. It looks like legit. But it was just 4 people. But 1 member of camera crew, really, which is kind of insane. So I would say that £15,000 for a video isn't unrealistic, but I have made videos for £1,500. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I think that even the video I made for Ledley that I just mentioned, even though I creatively limited myself because I knew the budget was small and all the rest of it, if that was being made legitimately and we were paying everybody properly who was in the video and involved, it should have cost about 10,000, I think. So it's very, very easy to look at the end product of something and go, well, surely, because you're paying for people's time and you're paying for people's, like, even renting equipment and renting the studio, and all that money can go and paying for food. Like all that stuff can go so quickly. It's not just what you're seeing on screen. Although we like our way of working is that we try and put as much of the money on screen as possible. You have to consider all the other elements as well, and that's kind of part of filmmaking. It's a boring part of filmmaking, the logistics side of it, but it's part of it. Yeah,
and pulling back from like music videos and going more generally, like what does a day in the life look like for you at the moment in a pandemic? Like, what have you done with the year? I know I'm sure you've rewatched Tenet about 80,000 times, but aside from that.
My housemates just got me a badge as well that says I understood Tenet. They literally just got me that.
I haven't seen it yet because the cinemas were briefly open last year, but I was technically meant to be shielding, and I kind of was, I kind of wasn't. But I thought going to the cinemas was like probably
maybe a bridge too far.
Yeah. And it's just with Christopher Nolan, I feel like watching his films, certainly for the first time, on like an iPhone on a train doesn't really do it justice.
I know that's become like a meme now, where people are just like putting Tenet on like a Game Boy Color and being like watching it the way that Nolan intended. I've watched Tenet a lot. Tenet, everyone's got like their comfort thing. Some people like to rewatch Friends or whatever. Genuinely, Tenet has become that for me, and I would say, if you're interested in music, that's maybe the leading reason I would watch Tenet.
Really?
Because Ludwig Göransson's score is unlike anything I've heard. It leads the whole film. In my opinion, it's the reason why I keep coming back to it. I think it's like, it's just, I wish there was a score-only version of the film. Yeah. And it does my head in when people talk about, I can't hear the dialogue, I can't understand what people are saying. You're not supposed to. He doesn't care. He doesn't care, so you don't care. That's how I feel about it. Like, listen to the music. It is so exciting, and it is constantly there and telling you something about the story and constantly moving. And watch the opera sequence on YouTube, like the opening sequence. Watch it. His score is telling you the story the entire time, and it's constantly changing with the images, and it's beautiful, and I've never seen anything like it in terms of the way that it syncs up with the action. Gorgeous. And that's why I think I keep coming back to it, is the way that Ludwig Göransson's been able to put his stamp on that film and really marry his sounds with those images, and it's just batshit. The film is absolutely insane. Like, I nearly said insane like Sean Connery there. Insane. But yeah, I love it, and I can't get enough of it, and it also is because of the year that it's in it. When I watch it, I'm reminded of the brief time that cinemas were open during the pandemic, and I went to go see it as much as possible, because number one, I was like, the first time I didn't like it. I was completely like, on it. And then when I went and saw it more, the more I was understanding it more, the more I was getting into what I've just been talking about. And now when I watch it, I'm reminded of that like brief time that I was able to go and see things in the cinema. But yeah, I would recommend Tenet, is what I'm saying. I can't believe that on this podcast I managed to talk about Tenet. You brought it up.
Yeah, no, it's my fault. It's my fault. Because I've been having, right, I'm going to level with you. I've been having an argument for ages with a few of my friends that that WALL-E is the best Pixar film. Now, I've researched this the other day. I've seen you've done an episode with Mark Kermode on it. And for him, it was his number 5, I think. For you, it wasn't on the list.
Correct.
And I didn't listen to the rest of the podcast on purpose.
Because I was like, hey, I hate this guy.
No, yeah. But I wanted to ask you, like, just now, like, what beats WALL-E?
Oh, wow. Well, according to me...
The annoying thing is, I do agree with your reasons, which is really frustrating.
Right. Yeah. I this is it, is that I would never, ever try and tell somebody that WALL-E isn't good. But WALL-E doesn't work for me, and it never, ever has. I've tried, I think, 3 or 4 times, and each time I've been like, this is just not... the charm doesn't work for me. Like, the atmosphere doesn't work for me. The tone doesn't work for me. Like, it just doesn't grab me in the way that other people do. And I think that eventually the film just sort of becomes... I haven't seen it for a while now, and it doesn't... I don't retain it. So WALL-E, for me, just sort of... it becomes quite an obvious film towards the end as well. It's like its message becomes more than its story. I can't remember what I put at number 1, but I think The Incredibles is the first thing that comes to mind. The Incredibles to me is
okay. Was Cars on the list?
Hell no.
Yeah, good. I can't accept
Hell
that.
no.
It's glorified highway maintenance for kids. It's like, I don't get the appeal.
Neither do I. But actually, in answer to your question before, how have I spent the pandemic?
Yeah.
Lots of different ways. I've got into coffee. That's the thing that I didn't do.
I've seen this on your Instagram, actually. Yeah, just going to the coffee store.
That's honestly,
is it an independent one?
Yeah, it's an independent place. It's an Italian place that I'm so lucky to live nearby, because during the pandemic, I think I've just become very aware that it's good to like where you live. Yeah. And I think in London, I've moved around in places a lot, and sometimes the place that you're living is incidental because London is where you live. So you go out to the centre of London, you know, you constantly doing something, and then you go home and you sleep, and then you go out into London again. Whereas during the last year, I haven't really been doing that. So it's been nice to know, I like this area. There are things that I like to do here. And that, even though the routine is kind of dull and kind of a little bit, it's repetitive, it's a bit Groundhog Day-ish, I really enjoy my little walks and the park that's near here and the coffee. I've exercised more than I've exercised, although I've not really been doing that recently. I've sort of run out of steam recently. But also these music videos. Like, I've been working for Amazon Music, doing a show for them on Twitch, basically weekly for the last 8 months or something, and I was exploiting the hell out of that. Like, every time we had a musician on that I liked, I would always just slip into the DMs and be like, really great to meet you, would love to be able to collaborate on a music video. And it worked. It's worked a couple of times. And that's I've been very, very grateful for that as well, because in a time where everybody collectively is in grief, and also worse than that, some people are like losing jobs and some places just can't open, things like that. I understand that right now I'm so privileged that jobs are kind of coming to me at the moment, because I'm the YouTube guy. I'm the guy who can be on camera and also knows how to do things behind the camera, and so I was kind of a good choice for somebody to come to do a show like that, because they needed me to set up my own equipment and also then host a show. So yeah, I've been very lucky to do that, and then also trying to be smart and jump off of that onto something I really want to be doing, which is making videos and making the movies. Yeah, because
with YouTube, you literally do everything, so it's the perfect kind of platform for that. Have you ever, for a music video, have you ever had just an idea like kind of pop into your head? Because I'm a big fan of Tame Impala, and for one of his songs, I have like in my head, and it's mental, but I have like
you just have a perfect music video in your head.
Shot for shot, like yeah, exactly, and it would probably be awful and very expensive, but
I wonder how you would. I wonder how you'd make it happen. Like, if you were to break it down, this is maybe it's you're not a filmmaker, so maybe it wouldn't be a fun challenge. But to understand, like, how would I make that video happen the way it is in my head, and adapting it from your brain to telling other people I want this thing and here's why. They very rarely just come full formed. Is the short answer. Like it's a long development, and also I find myself understanding my process. I hate these words sometimes, but understanding my process more and more. I really enjoy being on set, and that kind of gets the creative juices going in a way that I can't when I'm just planning or talking about what it is. I know vaguely what it is that I want to do, but then when I'm in the moment, it's like I've been handed a paintbrush. In a canvas. I'm like, well, now I know what I'm doing. Like, that's how it kind of feels. So as long as I've got the concept and the location and the, all the bits kind of, all the chess pieces on the board, I'm mixing metaphors now, but as soon as I've got the chess pieces on the board, I can see what the moves are. That's kind of how it works for me. Yeah,
that makes sense. And just finally, so for some reason, Dodie's manager sent through that you directed a video for a song called Special Girl.
Correct, yeah. So special. So
but
on
I
the
imagine
album,
that's now one of many.
Well, it was always one of many.
Yeah.
So like that's the one that I mentioned before, where we took a car through a car wash.
Okay.
But yeah, like so I directed. Yeah, like I said, a song for every song on the album except for the bonus tracks, and Special Girl is track 4 or 5 or something. But yeah, I directed one for every track on the album, so Special Girl is just one of those, and that's one where the concept for Special Girl is that for me it was Dodie is throwing herself the kid's birthday party she's always wanted, because she had this idea that she wanted to take the car through a car wash, and I was like, sure, that sounds like an interesting visual thing, let's do that. And I was like, what is it about a car wash that, and also the song's called Special Girl, and I was like, let's just make it that this version of Dodie is just like, I love myself as I am, forget everyone else. Like, I'm just going to completely indulge in all of these parts of myself and just celebrate me and just and I just thought, well, kids love going through car washes. Why don't we just have her throw herself the best birthday party ever with balloons and cake and party rings and streamers and things like that, and just made it this like party in a car going through a car wash.
That sounds really interesting. I want to see that. Jack, thanks so much for coming on. It's been great to speak to you. I think you're the first person who hasn't been a musician, so it's really interesting to get a different angle on the kind of same thing, but different perspectives.
Yeah, thanks, man. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.